When I was a graduate student, I worked in a music library at a large university. The music library was in a small area separated from the main library because it was dedicated solely to musical scores and recordings. And the director of that small library was an avid sailor who we affectionately referred to as Captain Jack. Now, I think I did a pretty good job at that library, and I think Captain Jack did as well, because he took me under his wing. He taught me a lot of things about music and libraries, books, scores, but he also started to teach me how to sail. And we would often go to a nearby lake where he would show me how to sail, and we would spend afternoons on the sailboat. Later, when I moved to Boston and started teaching, I missed those days of carefree sailing. So I joined the Boston Sailing Club, where you could take out a small dinghy out onto the Charles River. And one beautiful afternoon, I took one of those small boats out, headed out into the water, confident that I had the requisite skills to handle the boat, and things went pretty well. Until suddenly, the wind just kicked up and the seas started rolling. I headed back toward the dock, but I soon realized I was going to be in trouble. Despite all my efforts and my superior sailing skills, I managed to do nothing more than start screaming at the people on the dock and wildly waving my arms because I knew my little boat was about to crash into the shore. I want to talk to you today about one of many philosophies that fascinate me and that I have learned much from. It is an ancient Greek view of life, and I have found it to have many similarities to sailing. It is called Stoicism, and it was one of many popular schools of Greek thought that still have some lessons for modern life. So let me take you on a journey of Stoic sailing, and I'll try not to send you crashing into the docks. First, however, I want to mention what Stoicism is not. There are a lot of stereotypes of the philosophy that kind of trivialize it and diminish it. Stoicism is not about sticking your head in the sand and becoming an unfeeling person. It is really a way of looking at life in a very realistic and adaptable way. Stoicism was popular for more than 500 years in Greece and in the ancient Hellenic world, which covered most of Europe at that time, including Asia Minor and the lands stretching from Egypt all the way to modern-day Iran. It was popular even after the Romans conquered most of this same area. It began in Athens, Greece, in a portico filled with columns, and the word Stoicism is named because of what the Greek word for column is, which is stoa. Now, contemporary books about Stoicism tend to present the movement as strictly an interesting philosophy that can be helpful for the modern person. That may be true, but I think that such simplification does not really do Stoicism its justice. The psychological theory known as cognitive behavioral therapy is based upon Stoic principles, but Stoicism was not considered to be a self-help philosophy to those ancient Greeks. To them, it was a religion, and to truly understand it, we need to see it in that light. The Stoics believed that God was an immanent presence in the world. In modern terms, we might call them pantheists. To them, God was not a separate being beyond our grasp, but was a presence that permeated the entire universe. The laws of God, to them, were written in nature, and the power of God was experienced in that creative energy that was and is present everywhere. Humans, like all living beings, were considered to possess a tiny spark of that divine presence within. And it was their purpose to live in accordance with that holy gift. Doing so, they argued, is what makes us happy and fulfilled. And they recommend 3 goals that a person should pursue to be happy by living in accordance with this divine presence. And those 3 are resilience, responsibility, and virtue. Possibly the most important lesson of the Stoics is that we need to separate those things with which we do have control from those which we do not, and to let go of our concerns for those situations that are beyond our power to change. That is resilience. The Stoics believed that handing over power to things beyond our purview through our emotions, our thoughts, or our concern is what causes undue turmoil and suffering in our lives. Most often, our greatest degree of control is found in the process of achieving something, but is rarely found in its outcome. In the same spirit as Buddha nature, or the principle of Taoist no action, the Atman in Hinduism, or even Christ consciousness, the Stoics believe our higher selves are found when we stay focused on the present moment and when we accept things at face value without judgment. The goal of responsibility requires that we own up to our actions that we take and the consequences those actions may have on others. More than that, responsibility should be extended beyond the self so that we act toward the welfare of all beings. The Stoics believe we have a social duty to fulfill and asked us to consider in what way any action might affect the well-being of others. The way we can accomplish these goals, according to them, was through an adherence to virtue. In their view, we experience virtue when we are in alignment with our higher self, our living connection to the divine. And specifically, they hold that 4 virtues in particular were necessary. And those were prudence, fortitude, temperance, and justice. Really, the core teaching of Stoicism, based on those values, can be summed up in the words, virtue is the ability to discern what actions create the greatest harmony and the least harm for the self and all beings, while remaining detached from uncontrollable events and outcomes. What does any of that have to do with sailing? Well, first, you need to understand a basic principle of sailing, which is that a sailboat can sail in any direction except directly into the wind. And because winds change often during any given day, you cannot simply point a boat toward any specific destination and just go. You have to weave back and forth through the water. And a sailboat moves best when it's at a particular angle to the oncoming wind, which is determined by the length and angle of its sails. To reach a desired speed and direction, you must constantly adjust the sails and the rudder of the boat. At the same time, you also have to be fully aware of any other ships, the land, the conditions of the sea, and anything else that might be around you that you may go crashing into. In short, in sailing, you must remain focused on the present moment and constantly refine your course in order to move forward. See the connection? Rarely do any of us end up exactly where we thought we were going in life. Many times we have to change course or alter our plans to engage the prevailing winds of fate and time. We need to be aware of all that is going on around us and reach out to others when needed. We do not need to withdraw from the world, but engage with it in ways that we can without causing damage. And when a storm does come along, we need to pull in our sails and point our bow directly into the waves and ride it out. We cannot control fate and tragedy. We cannot control the hate and anger that may come our way. We cannot control the ravages of time or the dispositions of cruelty, but we can lower our sails, be true to ourselves, and hold on to the deck as we ride out the storm. When we do this, we are practicing resilience. When we reach out to others and help them through their own storms, we are practicing responsibility. When we make those kinds of wise decisions, when we stay focused and keep moving ourselves forward, when we align ourselves with nature rather than against it, we are living through virtue. The reason my little boat went smashing into a whole deck full of tied-up boats in front of an audience of other well-seasoned sailors and passers-by on the Boston Esplanade was because I had neglected to take down the mainsail. I tried to have control when I should have let go and let the boat glide in gently on its own. Instead, I was forcefully ejected from my seat of control and thrown into a sea of sudden realization and bitter emotions. There's a good reason why the Greeks were great philosophers and even greater sailors. In the name of that which you hold in your heart to be most sacred, may it be so.